I just knew deep down that if I didn't allow myself to, that the pain of the regret would be more than the pain of, say, rejection or failure if it didn't work out the way that it did.
Welcome to The Healing Blueprint. I'm your host, Jill Briansky. On this podcast, I speak with experts from traditional and holistic healing modalities. And together, we share insights, tools, and practical guidance so you can create your own healing blueprint. Let's move into today's episode and get started. I am really excited about today's episode where we take a step into undoing Disney. And we will talk about what that means with our guest today, Rose Sprinkle. Rose, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jill. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation with you.
So, Rose, can you give us an idea of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a children's book author, and I'm also a mom of 2 toddlers. They're 14 months apart. So I'm kind of learning all of these parenting skills and emotional regulation skills at the same time as I'm writing these books about emotions and feelings and really what it means to just be a flawed human in this world and how to try to make good and wise decisions, maybe sometimes when you're not in the best circumstances or just with the information you have at the time. So each book teaches a different virtue for kids to learn, like courage or honesty. And in the beginning of the book, they don't have that particular virtue, but they have a mentor that comes and teaches them. And then by the end of the book, they kind of understand how to practice that in real life. So as a mom of 2, it is really crazy and busy all the time. And to be able to sit and teach my kids, I found that reading to them and doing it in a moment when we were both calm and able to connect better was just a lovely way to really just love them in a better way and also teach my inner child how to heal from some of these things.
So your inner child, was that the impetus for your books?
It kind of was. I always wanted to be a children's author growing up. I told my mom in high school, like, one day, Mom, I'm going to write a children's book. So it was almost 20 years later that happened. And my background's actually kind of in marketing and design and storytelling. So it was kind of a nice marriage of those 2 skills. But for me, what had happened was I had lost a best friend very suddenly. And I was going through a very serious grieving process and just kind of stripping away all the things that I had maybe used to prop up my self-worth and self-esteem. You know, like I was a working individual. I had a nice career. I had a home that I lived in. I had good friends, all these things that we kind of fill up in our life to give us an identity. And all of that suddenly just didn't matter. And I really had to ask myself, what am I basing my worth on? Is it from achievement? Is it from all of the external validation? Or is it really from inside? And so that was a question that I had to grapple with for a couple years as I was kind of rebuilding my life and also healing from PTSD because that trauma kind of translated all through my body and everything that occurred with it. So it kind of was just a personal journey of discovery, and I'm still learning every day about it and hoping to pass these skills on to my kids so that when hard things happen in life, that they're prepared to trust themselves and prepared to go find the help that they need to buoy them up, because we're really not meant to do it alone.
No, we're not. But the simple idea of being able to ask for help and seek it out and know that that's not a weakness is a really important attribute to give kids as they're growing so that they don't have to do a free fall like you did.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember just thinking like, man, I just wish I had learned this when I was younger. I wish someone had given me the tools. And I mean, I think that's probably why I have so many books and why it's expanded into curriculum and all these other things, because as I was writing, I didn't have the intention to like create a whole series. I didn't have the intention to create a brand or a business. It was simply just things that I was learning. And I just kept uncovering more. Like there's more to learn. There's more to talk about. There's these other virtues that are so important. And so it just kept building and building and building. And I thought, what is it that I'm trying to teach? So the name The Little Virtues came way later. It first just started out with my first book, Little Love. And then the next one came. And then I was inspired by another trial I had to go through. And so it just kind of mirrored everything that I was learning in my life at that time. And I mean, I'm far from perfect. These are things that I think are going to take me a whole lifetime. So far bigger than I am, for sure.
But such a beautiful message to give kids as they're growing, right? You are strong. I know one of yours is courage, right? You have the courage to, even if you're scared, still do that thing anyway.
Exactly. And actually, Little Brave is probably my favorite. It's the one that I relate to the most. The idea is in the beginning, he thinks he's brave because he's perfect, essentially. He's never been scared. And I think I grew up with that perfectionist mindset that emotions really weren't something that I was actually allowed to feel. It was more of like, I'm only supposed to feel the positive emotions. I'm supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to always be happy. I'm supposed to put on a face. I'm supposed to always see the bright side of things. And so there was always this kind of warped sense of what it meant to truly be strong. You know, I never let myself fall apart, or I had a lot of defenses or walls. And I always felt like I had to be the perfect child to be happy for everybody and carry everybody else's weight. And so it was kind of interesting to reverse that, to know that it's stronger to be honest. It's stronger to actually be kind to yourself instead of nice. And I was taught how to be nice and politeness. So Little Brave is about letting himself fall apart and finding a deeper courage within himself because that's who he wants to be, versus trying to put on the front to everybody that he's this perfect knight who's never been defeated. And it's one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, and that goes to our beginning, right, of this undoing Disney and this idea that boys have to be perfect. They have to be that perfect knight in shining armor, and they aren't supposed to have emotions or feelings. And I love that you are really tapping in to the need of saying, you know what, it's okay for boys to have feelings. It's okay for them to express them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's been interesting. I'm actually a parent of two girls right now. And, you know, I just think it's interesting when you're with your kids out in public and say they're having like a meltdown or something. And you can see those side glances from parents like, okay, you need to control your child. Or like, I'm never going to have kids because holy cow, look at. And I'm thinking, I don't blame them. I get that. But this idea that somehow I can force my child to feel something differently than what they're feeling in that moment just through verbal command is such a fantasy, I think, and such a fallacy that we think that we can really just direct kids to suddenly change on a dime. You know, I mean, I'm sure I could if I was forceful enough and harsh enough that I could probably scare her into complying into what I want her to do. But that's not the point. You know, the point is to let her trust herself to go through it so that she knows that she's allowed to quickly feel it, you know, process it as long as she needs to, and then move on. And if you're not allowed to process it, you're taught to really damage yourself, I think, way later in life, you know, by doing yourself a disservice like that.
Yeah, and you're actually honoring her journey in this world and her figuring out who she is. And we figure that out by going through those difficult things and through those tantrums and through those moments. As you know, you had your moments, right? And your journey unfolded and you created this beautiful series based on your pain.
Yeah, I think there was a really good quote. I think it's from A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. It's one of my favorite books. But she said something like, true pain is suffering without purpose. And I really feel like that's true. We're all here in an imperfect world. We're all going to experience pain. It's part of it. And I think people that chase happiness aren't really ever going to find happiness, because I think true happiness comes from building that resilience in yourself, so you know that when those hard times come that you can get through them. And no matter what the outcome is, even if it's not ideal, that you kind of live life with this surrendering and grace. And in a lot of ways, I think that's the same process when we feel our emotions. We have to just surrender to the uncomfortable emotions and realize they're not bad, that they serve a purpose as well. And they're kind of pointing us to a deeper truth within us. So I love the virtues because we teach so much about emotional regulation these days, right? Like, feel this emotion, feel this, blah, blah, blah. But then it's like, well, what do you do after you feel the emotion? And that's where the virtue comes in. It's like, I choose to be brave. I choose to be kind, even if I'm faced with unkindness, because that is true strength. That is true humility. And so it's, you know, this profound way of just building this life of integrity. And I think everybody wants that for themselves. You know, that's why it's such a unifier, because it transcends any background, any religion, any, you know, political views, everything. It's just what it takes to be a good human and to live in this world that way.
As you're talking, you're reminding me of something that we used to talk about in my intuitive energy healing program. And the statement is, don't waste a good trigger. And the idea behind don't waste a good trigger is that the trigger, the thing that makes us react, is what is telling us that there's something out of balance in our system. And if we ignore that or just move through it and get angry and don't actually turn back and say, wait a minute, where did that come from? We've wasted that opportunity to come more fully into ourselves, to come more fully into balance. And it sounds like that's really what you're teaching kids, and probably the adults that are reading them as well, is, when you have the emotion, don't run away from it, because it's not, as you just said, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's teaching you something.
Yeah, Jill, I need to just write down what you just said because, like I said, it really is for the adults too, because I think a lot of parents are like, okay, I'm using the social emotional learning practice. I'm teaching them emotions. And like, why isn't it making a difference, or what is the effect here? And a lot of it is because kids learn through observation. They learn and model after the parent or the guardian in their lives. And so if the parent or their role model isn't regulating themselves, then it is going to have a very little effect if you're just teaching them a curriculum or showing them something. You know what I mean? They really do absorb through neurology. So this idea of like learning emotions through their body is pivotal. I mean, that's really how it's done. And so I love what you just said. Like, this trigger is a way of learning. I know for me, personally speaking, anger is probably the hardest thing I struggle with. Not necessarily with my kids, but with other adults for sure. and and I realize it's because it's become such an easy defense for me to use instead of my deeper feelings of either sadness or grief or disappointment, that I have a really hard time being disappointed. So I will use that anger as a quick way to have a one-up feeling of, self-righteousness or whatever it is. And I have to quickly learn how to disarm it. And like you said, ask that deeper question of what's going on here and how do I really feel? And am I going to show up vulnerably to express that, even if I don't get the validation back from somebody? Yeah, you're kind of putting yourself out there, and it's not easy to do.
It's not, but the more you do it, and I think that that's why you have so many books and you keep writing more and more books, is because the more you do it, the more it becomes, wow, like I feel better when I do this. This is now my norm, as opposed to doing it the other way, which doesn't feel good. I don't feel better when I do. When I get angry, I'll just use your anger, right? When I get angry, that doesn't actually make me feel better. And
Right.
I find myself stuck in that loop of, wait, why do I keep doing this? I don't want this. But I want to come back to all your books, and I know that you call them the little virtues. Can I ask how you came up with that name?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first book that I wrote was called Little Love. Then the second was Little Brave, and the idea that little is for little people. And then when I realized what each of these things were, worth, self-esteem, confidence, courage, honesty, charity, I was like, oh, these are virtues. And so I did a long, deep dive into what virtues were and how they affect the world, and how basically they're the building blocks for like a well-lived life. Like, if you want to live a happy, full life, full of joy, then practice virtues and it'll bring your best self out. Like you said, choosing to be someone that you can respect and admire. And so that's where the name came from.
And you, through this series, shouldn't even say through the series, you started this process, and the series is part of your healing process. And I'm wondering, if you have been getting feedback from parents, both on their journeys as well as the kids' journeys. Well, let me just ask you one question at a time. So,
Sure. Yeah, actually, I have had a few parents reach out to me. One in particular said she was going through cancer, and she was reading Little Patience, which is about a fairy that learns how to tend this garden with love. And she said that she reads it every day to give her strength in the hospital as she was going through her chemo treatments. I mean, like I knew the books were important, but when I hear stories like that, I mean, it really does just move me very deeply. It's very humbling to know that this is so needed, that there's so much, chaos in the world, that we need things to anchor us, to get us through. And the fact that someone's going through something like cancer, I mean, you talk about one of the most really humane things you can go through, and that this is helping her cope. I mean, it just really touched me. So there are a lot of parents who love these books because it really transcends age. I mean, they're timeless. It speaks to adults and kids. It's the same exact principles. And so that's part of why I love it so much, is because I wanted to create something that I really wanted to use with my girls, not just for kids, but really for families, and to bridge that connection between parent and child. Because kids always listen to their parents, right? Like, who wants to listen to a parent when you can have a fairy teaching them? You know what I mean? So parents figure that out pretty quick. Like, who wants to hear my knowledge? Not my children.
But your children are benefiting, right?
Yes, yeah.
They're benefiting in this other way that you found. And that woman that is dealing with such a tremendous illness is also fostering her inner child. I'm going back to what you said at the beginning about this inner child piece. And yeah, it speaks to her on an adult level, but it also sounds like it's speaking to that child in her that never learned those principles.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing maybe that these books offer is it's like a mirror of empathy, and understanding that you're not villainized because you don't know these things. You're not villainized if you haven't practiced these things, right? That's part of what the point is to learn and grow and do personal development. It's really this idea that you're learning how to build compassion both ways, both for you as a parent, as an adult, for what you've been through, for what you have yet to learn, and for your child, who you're learning how to pass on hopefully better templates, and maybe undo some generational trauma, or undo some of these things that we all go through. And so I think, especially just watching my kids play, I mean, that's how they learn. They learn through play and through fun and adventure and exploration. And these books, I wanted them to be kind of like these worlds, that each book had its own feel, and you're in a different environment every time. If you're under the ocean, or if you're, in Candyland, or wherever it is, that it's this fun experience for the kids, and that they can kind of picture and play with these imaginary characters. And so that was a really fun, joyful part of tapping into my inner kid, of just having so much play with these books. And, I was doing corporate work at the time, so it was like a nice break for me to be like, okay, we're gonna go do all my corporate stuff, like the lame stuff and whatever, and I'm gonna go home and play and write these fun books and play with these characters. And so, it's just such a joy.
And I love the fact that you have it set in like a candy. I've always wanted to live in Candyland. I don't know what kid has not wanted to live in Candyland. Is that how you get your inspiration for these places? Is it just, how do you do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think a lot of it kind of draws from real life. So when I came up with the idea for like a Candy Kingdom, because I was like, okay, I can't use Candyland because that's like copyrighted and everything. But I remember it was during COVID, and my husband and I were just watching so many baking shows on the Food Network. And I love baking shows. I'm not a baker by any means, but I just admire what they do. And I think it's so fun and creative. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I need to write a book in a Candy Kingdom. I just have to do it. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. So sometimes I'm inspired by an environment. Sometimes it's the character that I think of first. And then it's just sometimes just humor. I mean, I just thought, how funny would it be if she cheats at a baking competition? Because I'm watching all these baking competitions. I thought, what if you saw someone like putting, sabotaging someone else's dish, putting salt in or something? You'd be cracking up. And so I just thought, oh my gosh. So some books have like a more fun, funny, comedic, quirky tone to them. Others are more serious. It's kind of what felt appropriate for the story and the characters. So they each kind of have their own unique tone. But yeah, that was how that started.
So the story, the characters, the lesson, I'm assuming, is involved in all that.
Yeah, she cheats at a baking competition and at the end earns. That's not really honest. So, and I think Little Charity, we did a little elf that steals all the Christmas presents, and that was inspired by my younger sister, because we used to go around the house and like steal Christmas presents before Christmas Day, and kind of peek them open through the wrapping paper, and we get caught. And so, just funny things like that. Just like understanding that kids are going to be mischievous. It's just part, and we are too. Adults love to be mischievous and cause chaos. I mean, it's part of the fun. So speaking to that fun energy was just really exciting.
Yeah, I don't know one adult that doesn't want to go back and be a kid. So it's almost like you're bringing that spark of childhood back.
Yeah, and it's such a I think it's such an important part of healing and bringing joy to life, right? Like, and also that's part of the joy of having kids is you're kind of reliving that joy and innocence through those just expansive ideas of play. And so as an adult, I know that I have to play a lot to be happy. And it doesn't have to be anything, crazy, but that every day I need to find something to really play and just enjoy life because it goes quickly. I think it's a part of maybe practicing gratitude and being present minded is tapping into the here and now.
Yeah. And in the here and now, what do you have cooking? Listening to you, I'm hearing your words. What else is cooking in your world? Or do you have more books coming out? Do you like, where are you?
Yeah, so I do. I do actually. That's funny that you bring that up. So I've had two more books written for the last 3 years, and I've been pausing, waiting for the right time to release them. And finally, this October, I'm going to launch a Kickstarter for the next book called Little Clean, and it's about a zombie who is tired of being a gross zombie. And he learns about hygiene, how to brush his teeth, how to wash his hands, and the idea that he wants to be, you know, presentable and not moldy anymore. And it's a really cute one. So we're going to be starting that come October, a Kickstarter for that. So,
It's funny. I used to work with teenagers in an after school program. It was one of my first jobs at a social work school. And we had to teach them basics in hygiene, basics in banking, like how do you write out a check? How do you use deodorant? We went really to the basics, and these were teenagers. And so I think that you're actually tapping into something that we assume at some age people know, but if you're never taught, you don't.
yeah. And I mean, what's been interesting as I've been creating the books is they're kind of just like a conversation starter. It's almost like a handshake in my mind.
Mhm.
But I've been tapping more into doing like workshops and expanding those worlds into other things. So, for example, little honest, recently I've been doing a workshop series called Bake a Book, where it teaches kids how to do creative writing using recipes and ingredients, kind of in a metaphoric language that they can easily understand. And you get to choose your secret sauce and your secret things and mix it all together. And it's been such a joy to run these workshops and like teach these kids these ideas of expanding on these characters and what they can be. And so the education piece to me is probably the meat of what I really want to do. In fact, when I first went to college, I was an elementary education major for a couple of years, and then I changed to graphic design. But that teaching has always been a passion of mine. And I just realized I like to do it through creative means and through storytelling. So hopefully there's going to be a workshop for clean as well about hygiene and how to take care of your body and respect your body and your belongings and things like that. How to clean your room, simple things that kids can get excited about.
Yeah. And honoring where you are in your journey, because you didn't start this by saying, hey, I want to write all these books and I want to go back into education and I really want to teach. You didn't start any of this with that end result in mind. You started it with you, and you started it with what do I need? And it unraveled in such a beautiful way for you that you came right back to where you were to begin with. And everything is sort of like, it feels like it's clicking into place for you.
Yeah, it is kind of an interesting way how that has where I've ended up and where it's going. I've always been kind of entrepreneurial minded, and I had a career for like 18 years doing what I did. And normally I would just start a company and do something that I thought was interesting. This felt more personal. This felt like this is the legacy I want to leave. And it was kind of stumbled upon. What I've been talking about this whole time about allowing ourselves to play, just how important that is, because it was through playing that I discovered this. It was through allowing myself to take chances. I didn't know how to publish a book. I didn't know anything about this world or how to get started, but I just knew deep down that if I didn't allow myself to, that the pain of the regret would be more than the pain of say rejection or failure if it didn't work out the way that it did. So I guess in some way, even though there has been such a tumultuous journey to get here and all the trials you have to go through, I'm so grateful for those things because it really showed me what I really wanted in life. It really shows you what you really care about. And you don't get that when you're faced with just constant joy. I mean, I think that's why it's so necessary. Suffering is a blessing in an odd sense. It pushes us to be better than if we're just getting everything we want, and then we become these entitled, horrible creatures that expect more and are never grateful. So, there's a purpose for it, I think, and I'm very grateful.
And it's important to honor the full spectrum of emotions that we have as human beings without judging them, which is really one of the messages that I think comes through in your stories. So any final words for our listeners? Any messages you want to leave them?
Oh, so sweet. I just want to give them all a hug and just say, you're doing a great job. It's okay. It's okay. Everything is okay. It's going to be okay. But I would say allow yourself to give permission to play and, understand that it's not going to be perfect and that's normal and that's part of it. There's nothing going wrong. And, if they want to pick me up, we have a free album that I offer on Spotify that has just a bunch of songs. There's 8 songs, one for each book, and they're really fun. And so you can go on Spotify and just search The Little Virtues, and there'll be an album that'll pop up, and you can play that. And I listen to it every day in the car with my girls, and they love it. And we have dance parties to it, and it's just a good lift you up if you're feeling down or having a hard day. So that's been a really fun thing to do for sure.
And who couldn't use a little pick me up? And if people wanted to get in touch with you, or if they wanted to purchase the books, how would they do that?
Just go to my website, thelittlevirtues.com, and you can peruse the books and email me and contact me and anything that you have questions on. I'm always happy to answer and speak out to. So
this has been really fun. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Oh, thanks so much, Jill, for having me. I've loved it.
That's a wrap for this episode. Honor what landed, release what didn't, and we'll see you next time on The Healing Blueprint.